everybody. Welcome to Vikings Report Rewind. I'm Ted Glover, your host. With me are my usual partners in crime, the founder, lead blogger, and numero uno grand poobah of the SB Nation Minnesota Vikings website, the Daily Norseman, Christopher Gates. My partner in crime on Vikings Report with Drew and Ted. Since I'm Ted, he must be Drew. And doing it all in the background, making this whole thing possible, the MVP of our team, Ruby, Toonces Bunting. Gentlemen, welcome to 6-1. How's it feel?
Woo. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
This team has a serious problem making things easy on themselves. I don't know what the hell it is. I mean, Jesus.
Dudes,
almighty.
we got a lot to go over in this one. The good, the bad, and how about the penalties? My God, can we get through two plays without a stinking penalty?
You know, I want to talk, before we even get to the game, I want to talk about that referee crew because they were the absolute
terrible
worst.
It was the worst crew I've ever seen.
How many times did the Vikings get spotted a yard short of where they were?
41 times, I believe. 41.
Something like that.
When KJ Osborne scored his touchdown in the third or the fourth quarter, whenever it was, I thought they were going to spot the ball at the 4.
Yeah.
No, come on.
They did it in the first drive. Remember, Cousins ran it past the first down marker.
Yeah.
And they marked it a yard short. And I'm looking at the TV going, oh, it's going to be one of those games. They're terrible. What a terrible crew.
I'm not a, if the Vikings are lost, I wouldn't have been the refs lost this game for the Vikings because I don't believe that. I think teams need to make plays, but collectively there were bad calls against the Cardinals. There were bad calls against the Vikings. There were like 2 or 3 bad spots against the Vikings. When Jordan Hicks stopped that 4th and 4 1 yard short, I was 50% surprised they didn't give Arizona the first down there to keep the drive alive.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking they're going to give it to him, even though the ball never reached it. What a terrible crew, Ted.
It was absolutely horrible crew. Absolutely horrible. But go ahead, Chris.
Like you said, they didn't just screw one team. They had bad calls going both directions. It was awful.
What's the deal with having all the meetings? The false start penalty. Let's all gather together and have a 20-minute meeting about it. I mean, come on, let's get the game going here.
It's like they wanted to assert their dominance, man. Nobody comes to a football game to watch the refs throw the flag and call penalties. Nobody does.
It was
some stuff is obvious, but man, let them play. And for the most part, up until today, I thought the Vikings games had pretty much done that. The refs in those games up until today had pretty much done that. Today they were just terrible all the way around, I thought.
Even O'Connell was yelling at Sarah Thomas.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, 10 penalties for each side today.
Ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous.
There's a lot to go over this one, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. All right, so let's get to it. Before we get going, we've got a couple hundred people watching in our chat room. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to 6-1. Welcome to Vikings Report Rewind. Hey, we're going to give away a prize at the end of the show. So all you have to do is just put a comment in the live chat. Should be off to the side of your YouTube show, screen show. Just make a comment. Say hi, whatever. Ruby is writing all the names down. She's putting them in an electronic Toonces Wheel of Destiny at the end of the show. We'll spin, and you get to choose from our prize vault. If you want to know where our prize vault is, go to VikingsReport.com. It's on our website. Look for the prize vault. You'll get a whole bunch of stuff. Ruby will email you a link, and we can go from there. But anyways, Vikings win 34-26. They moved to 6-1 on the season, and it was a good start for the Vikes. They got the ball. Arizona deferred. Vikings, the big play in that drive, the opening drive, 25-yard reception to Justin Jefferson, and you kind of thought JJ was going to have a pretty good game. Dalvin Cook looked really good running the ball. But the surprise in that drive to me was Kirk and Kyler Murray Cousins wheeling it in from 17 yards on the ground.
I say this every time Kirk Cousins run the football. Dude looks like Bambi trying to walk across the ice. It was so ugly. But he got to the corner. Nobody was catching him. I mean, he turned it up and he got in. That was great. I was surprised at that.
Proverbial baby horse running in the. He should cut this box score out and frame it and put it on the wall, Ted Glover, because Cousins 17-yard touchdown run. You're not going to see a lot of that. Let me tell you, 17-yard touchdown run. It's got to be a record for that guy.
I believe that was the longest run for him as a member of the Minnesota Vikings, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow. I can verify that while you're while you guys are talking about it.
That's crazy.
What
kind of prop bet did that pay off?
Like
Kirk
$8 million
Cousins
to 1.
$1
million. It was a great start, though. It was a real gamer effort, but he ran like 3 times in that drive, didn't he, Ted?
Yeah, he got a first down. He ran one other time, I think, and then he had the 17-yarder to cap the drive, which was really nice opening drive for the Vikes. I thought it really came out. They set the tone coming off the bye. I thought they needed to start strong, and they did. Arizona comes out, and there was where you kind of thought maybe this ref crew is going to be idiotic. They called this ridiculous horse collar penalty on Patrick Peterson. It was on 3rd and 7. It was an incomplete pass. Would have been first down. Patrick Peterson came back, had another great pass breakup on 3rd down, and the Cardinals settled for a field goal, and it's 7-3. There was on the Vikings' second drive, one of the best plays I thought of the whole game was like 3rd and 1, and they had this little kind of pitch out play that you see a lot of high school teams do. Right. And there was nobody within 20 yards of Dalvin Cook. He ran it for a huge gain.
That play reminded me of the 8-0 Michigan Wolverines.
Yeah, well, whatever. Wait to kick 5 field goals against a terrible Michigan State team. I'm just saying.
Win's a win, even if it's hanging off the ass of a cow, Ted.
Yeah, that's true. No,
that was a great play. That was a really good play.
Yeah. But then the Vikings.
Just for clarification purposes, I want to point out that Kirk Cousins, apparently it's something we all forgot about, had a 29-yard run against Arizona last year when they played. Really? I don't remember it off the top of my head, but that's as long as a Viking.
That translates to like 3 miles.
Like forever. Yeah,
29? 29?
Yep.
It probably took him yards. Probably took him a minute and a half to run that 29-yard.
I was busting up on that play.
But then the Vikings, that drive stalls out. They go for it on 3rd and 4th down, a couple incomplete passes.
Bad call down there.
Yeah. Then Arizona gets the ball back. Zadarius Smith gets the first of 3 big sacks. And what I thought was very cool on that first sack of his, on the day Jared Allen is inducted into the Vikings Ring of Honor, Z does the little rope the calf sack celebration in honor of Jared Allen. I thought that was like really, really cool, but that's just me.
It was very cool. Very
cool.
He's coming on, isn't he, Z?
Yeah, he really is.
The last 2 weeks. You know what? That guy enjoys playing football. He's smiling, he's laughing, but he's tremendous off the edge, man. That guy, he's rounded into shape, Ted. The last 2 weeks he's been on fire.
He really is.
It's a good thing Green Bay decided that dude was washed up and that they
How many times? Let's talk about this for a second. How many times from your Packer friends, either on social media or in real life, did you hear after Zadarius Smith got signed was that he was A, washed up, and B, bitter over the Packers releasing him, and C, the Vikings weren't going to get anything out of him this year?
Exactly what I heard over and over again from my FedEx driver.
I heard it like 52 times at least.
At least. Oh, he's not going to do a thing. Done.
Nope.
No. He got 5 sacks the last 2 weeks or something?
He did like 8.5 for the year, I think.
Yeah. He had 3 today, I think.
Yeah.
God, that was a weird game, man.
It just was, yeah. So it's still 7-3. The Vikings get the ball back. Again, Dalvin Cook starts off the drive with runs of 19 yards, 11 yards. And then the Vikings get down on the goal line, and they had this just absolute beautiful play design. This was they're on the 1. Kirk does they fake a run, they fake an end around, and Johnny Munt is all alone in the end zone, and it's 14-3. And up until that point, the Minnesota Vikings offensive line was just completely dominating the Cardinals. I mean, they were absolutely mauling them. On that drive, Christian Darrisaw killed 2 dudes on 1 block on a Madison run. He absolutely wiped out the defensive end on the play they got down to the 1. And I just, it's such a contrast because that was such a slow developing play. It's not something the Vikings could have run last year because they just didn't have the offensive line that could give Kirk that much time down on the goal line.
I said it a couple shows ago. I really love the inside the 10 play calling of O'Connell. I do. He throws a lot on first down. He's done it throughout the 6-1 start. He's down there first and goal at the 3, does a play action pass or something. There's so much with Zimmer up the middle, and then there's a lot different from last year, Ted.
There's so much motion and movement on these plays inside the 10. I mean, there's just so much that opposing defenses have to account for. And we, like Drew said, we didn't see that the last couple of years. It was all just kind of line up and do one thing. And O'Connell's play calling inside the 10 has been just brilliant for most of the year, as far as what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, he has really installed a very creative offensive set of play calls when it's goal to goal. And the Vikings today, I think, had five red zone possessions and scored 5 touchdowns. You can't get much better than that, to be quite honest.
That is, you can't.
Yeah.
5 is 5 is 5. That was very un-Zimmer like 5 for 5.
It was.
I want to throw this in before I forget. Remember when they showed O'Connell talking to Thielen on the sideline, going over some play or something? Thielen was sitting on the bench, and O'Connell was over there like with hand motions, and Thielen was nodding yes. They showed it. There was a little clip for like 6 seconds.
Okay.
I was thinking to myself, now there's something you didn't see last year. The head coach over meeting with one of the players.
No, you didn't see, no.
I thought it was really cool. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Well, going back to that, I mean, even before the game started on the Fox NFL pregame, they had a segment with Kirk and Kevin O'Connell, and Kirk said something to the effect, I tweeted it out. He said something to the effect, look, the most honest criticism you can hear from your coach is the truth, because you can't get better if you don't know what it is that you're doing wrong.
Right.
And I'm not saying that was a slight to Mike Zimmer, but I just think it's such a contrast between the last few years and this year with the communication the Vikings head coach has with his quarterback and that example you gave with Adam Thielen. He's looking to get input from the players, where before it just was shut up and do what I tell you, I think.
Right.
And I would argue that is a big reason the Minnesota Vikings are now 6-1 as opposed to 3-4 or 4-3 or whatever it is they probably would be under previous head coaching regime.
No, and there was another story about that, not necessarily with Cousins, but apparently Cameron Dantzler, they were talking about his season that he's had this year, and there was something that came out last year that he saw Zimmer one day at the team facility and whatnot, and said, "Yeah, now that I'm hurt, you don't talk to me anymore." And Zimmer just kind of looked at it and said, "Yeah, I don't talk to guys that are hurt."
Yeah,
I'm like,
I saw that.
Dude is still on the roster, for Christ's sake. Talk to he's a second-year cornerback. I mean, you're this cornerback defensive guru guy. Talk to them. I don't get it.
There can't be any more support for Mike Zimmer after this start.
You can't. Yeah,
nobody can argue that it wasn't the right move to fire Zimmer.
If you are, you're kind of the metaphorical equivalent of sitting in a Berlin bunker right now at the end of World War II. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. All right. So look, before we go any further, we got a whole bunch of people watching.
Hey guys,
again, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Is everybody fired up in that chat room?
Yeah, there's a lot of
yeah,
pretty good, pretty much.
Shout it up.
All you got to do we're going to give away a prize at the end of the show. Just make a comment on our live chat. You're following along on our YouTube channel. You'll be registered. We're gonna spin a wheel here at the end,
yes.
And you'll be eligible for the win. Make sure you hit the like button as well. Subscribe, all that good stuff. Anyway, so it's like 14-3, and this is where things. I thought the Vikings had a real good chance to go into halftime with a really commanding lead, at least go down and get a field goal. They got the ball with something like 4.5-5 minutes left. I'd have to go back and look. And they had the ball. They started on their own 5. Arizona had to punt, and they got out to like the 35, 40, whatever it was, and they had third down, and Kirk threw an incomplete pass, and they had to punt, and it was 3rd and 4, and Kirk threw a deep ball to KJ Osborne. And now it was kind of high, but KJ got his hands on it. He should have caught the ball. But I was really aggravated at the call. And we've griped for years about the Vikings being aggressive or not being aggressive, and they should need to be more aggressive. And I get that. I totally get that. But when you only need 4 yards, I was not a big fan of that decision and that play call because it gave the Cardinals a lot of time to go down and score a touchdown, and that's exactly what they did. And instead of maybe going up 17-3 or if nothing else, getting a couple more first downs, eating more time off the clock, and probably giving the Cardinals only a realistic shot at a field goal, they had enough time to go down and score a touchdown, and now it's 14-10 going into half.
I had something written in my notes, and it's going to segue right into that drive.
Okay.
This is kind of funny. Besides calling that hitman interception later,
yeah,
right before the snap, I looked at Rui Amal. Turnover would be really nice right here, and he threw that wounded duck. We were up 14-3, and the Cardinals punted, and we took over at the 4.
Yep.
During the commercial break, I told Ruby, I go, for the last 10 years, this feels like my gut feeling is this is when the Vikings start giving it back right here. It kind of feels like they go up 14 points, 21-3 Bears, and then all of a sudden, it felt just like that, Ted. And we did get a couple first downs, but it felt right there. This is the point where the Vikings, Zimmer, all the years that have gone, this is the point where they can't step on the throat right here. This is the drive they're going to botch. Mm-hmm. It just felt like that to me on that specific drive.
And they did. And it, the Vikings offense had several chances to put this game either away or give them such a lead that it seemed unrealistic that Arizona would come back. And that was the first opportunity right there. And they completely missed it. And then, so Arizona gets the ball and they come down and DeAndre Hopkins makes this ridiculous one-handed catch. And it's now 14-10. The Vikings get the ball 47 seconds. And again, they're aggressive. I like the aggression, and they get Greg Joseph once again in position to kick a 56-yard field goal. And look, I'm of the opinion that 56-yard field goals are a personal curse for Greg Joseph because I don't think he's made one yet. Well, other than the first one this year. That's it.
Yep. No, I mean, I don't know what's going on with that guy because he had a couple of misses, and the one was just a bad miss. You like hit the dude in the face. I mean, like they were saying on the Fox halftime show, you have to drive the ball in that situation, obviously, but you got to get a little bit higher than the dude's face. I mean, I don't know what his issue has been on the longer field goals because he's
a little
50.
higher.
Everything under 50 this year, he's been automatic, but he's missed like 5 in a row now from 50 and beyond. So that's,
if the Vikings lose that game, if they would have lost that game, Ted and Chris, that'd have been on Joseph for not making it a 2-score game with that extra point. That's all on him. He hits the extra point there. We go up by 9. It's over. They're not going to score twice. That was a big miss. That left us with an 8-point lead, which still left them in the ball game. It was a huge miss.
Are you guys worried about Greg Joseph yet? There was a lot of consternation on Twitter, social media that Greg Joseph just might not be it.
I mean, he's having his issues. Like I said, I shouldn't say anything under 50 because he's missing extra points now too. But the field goals under 50, he's been automatic. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's one of those things where you want to just, bring in a couple of guys just to kind of say, hey, you need to get it together. But, I'm not the expert on like sports psychology or any of that sort of thing.
I am, Chris. I'm an expert on all sorts of psychology. And you know what the psychology is? He's a kicker. So next week he could hit 6 of them like he did in London. He hit 5 field goals or something.
Yeah.
They're kickers. They're really hot and they botch something.
He was special teams player of the week just like 3 weeks ago.
You're not going to get a guy that's going to be any better that folds under pressure. You bring somebody in now, it's not going to be any better than Joseph. He's going to miss field goals too. You're not going to get Tucker.
No.
Well, we got some comments about the kicking game.
Let's hear it.
Riley Emmert says, "Go get Rodrigo Blankenship." Nelson Williams, he's now missed 6 50-plus yarders in a row. Jay Johnson is concerned. Our buddy Rhino said he's missed an extra point, I think 3 straight weeks now, which I think is correct. 3 straight games now.
That is. He seems like he's either really in a groove or he sucks. There's no in between with Joseph. There's no in between with a guy.
I thought for sure I thought for sure that extra point miss. The kick, not so much. I mean, 50 plus yarder is a tough get. And like one thing I've noticed, the Vikings had their, the big doors at the end of the stadium are open. We're open today. and that affects, I'm telling you, I think that affects, and that 56 yarder, it was blocked. I get that. But he was kicking into that end of the stadium. So that wind was coming in. And I think it creates a tunnel thing. Because remember that game he had, was it the Detroit game, I believe?
The Detroit game where he missed 2.
Yeah, he missed 2 50-plus yarders or whatever it was. And the Detroit kicker missed one from that end of the field too. I'm telling you, man, I think there's something that affects the ball, the wind coming into that end of the stadium with the doors open. I don't if it hadn't gotten blocked, I think he'd have missed it anyways.
Like at the Meadowlands back in the day when they used to open and close the doors at certain times for whatever the hell.
Yes.
You might have something. I don't know if the doors were open there today or not, or what the deal was, but it's just that end of the stadium. It's weird.
Old Giants with Tony Danello and Matt Barr. They
Phil
did
Sims, Otis Anderson.
Oh yeah, that's old school, huh, boys? How old were you guys when that was going on? Phil Sims and Ali Haji Sheik and all that?
In the 80s? I was a teenager.
I'd have been like 10.
Wow.
10, 11.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think I was ever 10. You know what I am too? What does that say?
6-1. So for the second half, the teams exchange 3 and outs. Arizona gets the ball. And then the second drive, Arizona goes 5 plays, 52 yards. Zach Ertz scores, and now all of a sudden, from 14-3, the Vikings are down 17-14. And you're just like, God, here we go again. I mean, the Vikings cannot put enough distance between them and an opponent to make you feel comfortable ever. They just can't.
Chris Gates, why do they play better when it's more urgent? Why do they seem to they seem to execute plays and everything? They're more intense when they're behind, or when they're pressed, they seem to play better. What's going on with that?
It's the Nuke Lelouch thing. Don't think, just play football. I mean, don't stop trying to throw strikes and just go out there and pitch, for Christ's sake. I mean, I don't know what it is. They get out there and they get the play call, and they've had these times where they don't huddle up and they kind of just get to the line of scrimmage and do everything from there. And it just functions that much more efficiently when they do that, it appears. I don't know why that is, but that's just the way it seems like it's been for them.
My fanship is all twisted up because I feel more confident when they're behind by 3 than when they're up by 14.
But I'll tell you, and it was like when that happened, the social media was just a light. This team sucks. Fire everybody. Blah,
were they
blah,
really?
Blah.
Really? At 17-14 in the third quarter.
When the Vikings went down, there were some pretty irritated folks, for sure. But the Vikings answered right away. They came right back down. 8 plays, 75 yards. They hit again another third manageable, and Kirk goes deep again. But this time, Justin Jefferson comes down with a big grab, 29 yards.
Wasn't that beautiful?
Oh, geez,
that was a ridiculous catch.
That was. And he seemed a little calm today. He was pretty calm, Justin Jefferson. He didn't really get excited or seemed like he was a little angry about something. But that was a hell of a catch.
And then Alexander Madison caps it off with a run. Vikings go up 21-17. And then my favorite moment of the game. So in the second half, my grandson Grayson decided to come down and watch the second half with me, which is pretty cool. First time he's watched that much football game with me. And we're watching it, and Arizona gets the ball, and Kyler Murray throws this wounded duck that Harrison Smith intercepts, and my grandson goes, "Get wrecked." I'm about passed out laughing. It was so funny.
That's beautiful, man.
Just really low key, nothing dramatic. It's like, get wrecked. I was dying.
Nice.
That's really good.
And with that interception, I believe they said Harrison Smith is now 5th all time in team history in interceptions. He's up to 32 now.
He passed,
which is a pretty awesome.
Yep. He has the most pick sixes too out of anybody.
Oh, I'm sure he does.
He passed the great Viking Nate Wright, who I think
my boy,
who is undeservedly remembered for one infamous play in Vikings history, when in fact he was a great cornerback in his own right when he played. But he passed Nate Wright.
A guy I got to meet when I was 10 years old.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Nice.
So the Vikings, 4 plays, 31 yards. Dalvin scores. It's 28-17. They scored 2 touchdowns a minute 40 apart, and you thought, okay, here we go.
What were you guys really thinking at that juncture? What were you guys? Give me your honest opinions. What were you in the bag?
Nope, absolutely not.
I thought they had kind of taken control. The Cards were flustered. They just had that big turnover. The Vikings scored those 2 quick touchdowns, and I'm like, all right, they got this. They got this back under control. I was wrong.
Oh, and then they had the ugliest defensive drive I've ever seen. That was just bad tackling. It was horrible. Seemed like they scored in like 4 plays, didn't they?
That's exactly what it was. 4 plays.
You don't have to try to strip the ball every time. Sometimes you have to actually tackle the dude that's carrying the football instead of trying to strip it away from him. I mean, I don't know what the heck that drive was, but yeah, that was one of the ugliest defensive sequences we've seen from this team this year.
I think it's going to happen. It's going to happen once in a while.
Eric Kendricks 2 times, 2 straight plays, tried to punch the ball out from Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore, A, did not fumble, and B, broke both of those tackles, and C, on that second fumble-rooski punch that didn't happen, he scored a touchdown.
Yes, he did. Man, you take Hopkins and Rondale Moore out of their offense, they're not going to score any points.
Yeah.
Those are the only 2 guys you got to take away from the Cardinals.
And so, look, I love Eric Kendricks, but like you guys have said, just make the tackle, man. I mean, stop the yards after catch to the maximum extent possible and make them go down the field. Because look, the Vikings probably gave up another pile of yardage today. I would imagine in terms of offense the Cardinals generated, but they can make stops when they have to, and they were +2 in turnovers again today. They're near the top of the NFL. If they can just make, or if they can just prevent guys from making big plays, the chances of them giving up a touchdown aren't as dramatic as if they just trying to. I mean, I get trying to go for the turnover, but man, just make the tackle and see if your defense can at least hold them to a field goal, which they didn't do.
Nope, not on that drive.
I agree, but I also agree that this team hasn't had the punch out, grab the ball, Dantzler from the Bears. They haven't had that they haven't been that opportunistic in the last 5 years. So I don't mind. I don't like not seeing them make the tackle, but they're trying to cause turnovers, and that's how you get turnovers, is by causing them. So
yeah, but I would also argue that secure the tackle first, then try and punch the ball out.
Well, yeah.
You know, once you've got them, or get them in the grasp and let somebody else come up and try and rip the ball out.
That drive seemed too easy for the Cards.
It was 4 plays, 76 yards, and now all of a sudden it's 28-23. But Cliff Kingsbury rears his ugly head.
That guy's dope. That guy's
Cliff with the K. Would you have gone for 2 there? I get the theory, but like it's still mid-3rd quarter there.
What about using your timeouts? That guy's an idiot.
Yeah,
idiot sandwich.
That's way too early to be chasing points. I think you just kick the extra point there, and yeah.
Because
I'm glad he did it.
Yeah, because if he kicks the extra point there, they don't need the 2-point conversion at the end of the game to tie. All they need is a touchdown and a regular extra point, and it's tied. But now he's chasing that point that he didn't get by going for 2 and not getting it, which I thought was a great play of the Vikings defense there. So yeah, it's what, 28-23 there?
23.
Yep, 28-23. And I'll say this, Hopkins is a hell of a receiver. That guy's a crybaby, Ted. The guy bitches too much. Shut up and play the game, Hopkins. You're always crying to the officials. Go ahead. Continue.
And then, you know, and so after I was feeling pretty secure, now that those 2 big plays by Rondale Moore or non-plays by Eric Kendricks, however you want to look at it.
Right.
I'm feeling, man, the Vikings offense really needs to do something here. And they did. Kirk was promptly strip sacked. Cardinals got the ball, 1st and 10 on the 25. And I will say the Vikings defense bowed up and kept Arizona out of the end zone, made him kick a field goal.
That was big.
And that was an absolute win for the Vikings defense there.
I was actually really surprised. I can't remember what the down and distance was on was that the one where they fumbled the snap on third down and had to
Yes. Yep.
Okay, that's why. I figured if they hadn't fumbled the snap there, they were probably going to go for it on fourth down, but after they botched that play, they really didn't have any choice but to kick the field goal. So yeah, that was a huge thing for the Vikings, and like you said, it kept them in the lead, 28-26 at that point, and like you said, so in that case, if they would have gotten that 2-point conversion, it would have been a tie game. So I guess you can make arguments either way. It's just still isn't something I would have done at that point.
Right. I thought that was a huge turning point for the Vikings. And I thought, okay, I think they're going to win here. They need to go down and score a touchdown, but they're going to win this game. I truly felt that at that point. How are you feeling, Drew?
Yeah, it's very strange because we're still getting into this new regime, but the Vikings have had a lot of moments that last year would have buried them.
Yes.
It would have buried them and they'd have been out of the game. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I do. But
absolutely.
Things were going bad. Cards got a touchdown, then Cousins with the strip sack. Right there, it all goes to hell and we lose.
Yes.
So these moments of adversity that the Vikings are fighting through and still winning, I'm not used to it yet. So I'm always thinking gloom. Here comes the gloom and doom. Here comes the doom. But we are fighting through those moments, and that's part of turning your team around, turning the culture of the team around. And that's
yes.
They keep bouncing back when we expect them to fold. Or me.
They do. And they did bounce back. Kind of sort of. I mean, good fortune was on their side, which you have to have in games. I mean, sometimes bounces have to go your way. And that happened. We opened the show talking about the incredible mediocrity of the officiating crew today, and this is one of those moments. So it's 28-26. Kirk throws a quick out to JJ, who everybody in the stadium, the crew, the announcing crew, everybody watching on TV thought he got a first down because he did.
He did get a first down.
He was a yard past the first down marker.
What the hell is wrong with those guys?
But they counted him short. And I don't even think the Vikings sideline knew. I thought the Vikings sideline assumed he had gotten a first down because what had been a first down had now become third down. I think that the next play was a run to Dalvin Cook, who was stopped for no gain. And instead of like 2nd and 10, which I believe is what the graphic showed on TV at first, they said, oh, no, now it's 4th down. And everybody's like, what the hell just happened?
If you remember, Ted, the first quarter, they moved the chains and then had to delay the game and move the chains back.
Yes, they did.
I mean, how often do you see that? That
was terrible. It was just terrible. Officiating crew was just terrible. So that cost the Vikings a first down, and they had to punt. And this is where I thought, oh, well, this might not work out. Punt returner fumbles it. Troy Dye recovers the fumble. Vikings get the ball. And then Kirk Cousins threw this absolute seed to KJ Osborne, who made just a fantastic catch, 34-26. Good guys. And I thought that was it. I mean, I thought, okay, the Vikings, they've got it now. Or were we still uncomfortable?
I mean, you just never know what's going to happen with this team because, they got a couple more possessions and they did nothing.
That was angering me. That was
you keep giving an offense like Arizona's opportunity after opportunity, and eventually it's likely going to come back to bite you. But that they got the stops they needed to get at the end. So in spite of themselves, they held on to win this one.
And after that touchdown, Cam Bynum had his interception. And this is where I thought, okay, this is where they end the game. There's just under 7 minutes left, 6:43 or 6:45, somewhere around there. Vikings had the ball, I believe, right around their 35-yard line after the return.
Terrible calls.
And all they needed to do was just salt the clock away and get a couple 3 first downs, burn it down to about 2 or 3 minutes, get in field goal range. Give Joseph a chance to redeem himself, whatever. And they went, I think they went 3 and out. I think Kirk actually took a sack on third down and they had to punt. And here we go once again. The Vikings are are fighting for their lives late in the game. But Jordan Hicks had that huge stop on fourth down we talked about earlier. It was 4th and 4, stopped him a yard short. I'm completely 100% surprised, like I said earlier, that the refs didn't give the Arizona ball carrier first down by like 2 or 3 yards, but they didn't.
Terrible crew. This is the
It
worst
was.
officiating crew I've ever
God,
seen.
it was worse. It was so bad. It was like Jerome Boger's crew bad, man. They were just terrible.
Damn.
The Vikings had the crucial handful of plays today.
They did.
But they also gave away some crucial handful of plays. So it's kind of going back and forth on that. Those last 2 drives, guys, that was pathetic.
Yeah.
They had 2 3-and-outs after. I mean, the defense kept giving them the ball back, and the offense kept giving it back to the Cardinals.
And they had the ball, I think, with 2:39. They couldn't get a first down.
Oh.
But you go back to Cliff Kingsbury, because he's an idiot. He had to burn all 3 of his timeouts. So by the time they got to the 2-minute warning, Arizona had no timeouts left, and they had one good play. I mean, Kyler Murray scrambled out of the pocket and found DeAndre Hopkins way downfield for like 30, 35 yards.
Oh, that angered me.
But he took a sack. He ran and only got 5 or 6 yards. They really wasted a lot of time on that call and then on that drive. And then the last 2 plays of the game, the Vikings defense came up huge and sacked Kyler Murray back to back to end the game. So, whew.
They keep making these big plays when they need them, guys, and they weren't doing that last year.
They do.
No, they weren't.
They do. I mean, and every time you mentioned this earlier, Drew, every time you think the Vikings are like coughing up the game, they stop that momentum that the other team has, and they get it right, and they get their sea legs under them, and they go down and they make a play, they get a score, defense makes a stop, gets a turnover, whatever it is. I mean, look, at some point you have to say this is I don't think you can say anymore this is a bad team that's just getting lucky, because I've said this before and I'll say it again. Good teams find a way to win, and they make their own luck. And today the Vikings did just that.
They've been doing it all year.
They have.
And like I said on the last studio show, go back and watch it if you want, folks. It was a great episode 77 of Vikings Report. I said most football games are lost by teams rather than the other team beating them. Most games are figured by your team beating yourself. They are. And the Cardinals did that today. The Cardinals made too many mistakes. The Cardinals are the Vikings of the last 2 years.
Yes. That is a great observation, my dude. That is an awesome observation right there. Yes.
That's what it looks like to me. I mean, Kyler Murray lost that game. He made some great plays. He made some great plays, but his mistakes were bigger than his great plays. And we talked about that in the preview, Ted.
Yep.
Who do you trust more at the end? Who do you trust more?
And
Kyler Murray.
Kirk Cousins made a play. That touchdown throw to KJ Osborne in the fourth quarter was clutch. You know, and yes, the Vikings have struggled at times. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying they're a juggernaut, but man, it at some point it's not luck when you figure out a way to win every week.
Exactly right.
No, absolutely.
I mean, it becomes an expectation. And Chris, you might be a little bit too young to remember, but Drew and I grew up watching the Purple People Eaters in the 70s. And again, I'm not comparing this team to that era, but that era every week, I don't know that they played great football week in and week out. Some games they were just dominating, but some days they didn't bring their A game, and they had tough games where they just had to figure out a way to win. And every week, almost every week, without fail, they figured out a way to win, just like this team is doing now. And so at some point you just have to say, look, this is just a good football team. It's a good but flawed football team that's figuring out a way to win.
No, and it's like you guys have said a bunch of times. I mean, the last couple of years, we saw plenty of situations where, one thing would go wrong for the Vikings, where there was a penalty, they take a sack, they give up a big play on defense. And after that one thing goes wrong, everything just completely went to hell, and they couldn't dig themselves out of whatever situation they got themselves into. And that's not happening with this team. I mean, that you had the strip sack for that strip sack of Cousins there in the third quarter. And, last year's team probably would have completely folded up and allowed a touchdown at that point and got themselves back behind again. This team didn't do that because they don't believe that that's inevitably what's going to happen. They think they have the ability to step up and stop that kind of thing. And so they don't let those things snowball the way teams have in the last couple of years in Minnesota. So, yeah, like you said at the top of the show, I don't think you can argue that the coaching change wasn't the right move anymore. So it's pretty clear it was.
Vikings are making their own luck. And let me tell you, the guys are playing harder. And I have an example of that, of what this wouldn't have happened the last 2 years. And I don't want to keep going back to the last 2 years and harping on it, but it's a glaring difference. Did you see, I mean, there was plenty of replays on TV. Did you see the effort by Troy Dye to get that friggin' ball on that
Yes.
one?
Yes.
Vikings aren't doing that last year. They're just going to give up. They're going to give up and let the guy corral it with his feet. Remember, he had it between Troy Dye. That 9 out of 10 guys aren't going to give you an effort like that. That was, was, I watched it. I rewound it and watched it. I mean, it was amazing. That's the kind of effort. That's when you know your team is playing for each other right there. That's to me, that's glaring of good positive vibes, man. That he scrapped for that thing, dude.
So let's talk about some of the individual players in this game. And that was a great individual effort by Troy Dye. Let's talk about the fountain of youth Patrick Peterson is drinking from this year. I thought he had a phenomenal game.
They kept going after him on, I don't know how many times they went after him, but it seemed like every time they went after him, he won. I mean, and that's all you can ask for your cornerbacks.
The last 2 weeks, what's gotten into that guy?
I don't know.
You were kind of down on him last year. You thought he was just kind of collecting a paycheck.
No, 3 weeks ago, I ripped him. I ripped him 3 weeks ago, and we should burn that tape because something has happened the last 2 weeks. That he looks different, Ted.
And you weren't wrong. I'm not calling you out because you weren't wrong. He was not playing at this level last year. The level Patrick Peterson is playing at right now is reminiscent of him, 5 or 6 years ago when him and Xavier Rhodes, they were kind of the 1-2 shutdown guys in the NFL. He's playing at that level right now.
Toots has even mentioned during the game, she said, what's gotten into Patrick Peterson? Why does he looks a lot different. He's playing a lot better.
Can he maintain that? We'll see. But man, I'm gonna ride this roller coaster for as long as we can.
Oh, he was fired up today. He was talking smack on the sidelines. He was getting angry out there.
Dalvin Cook had a 100-yard game. The Vikings running game, I think.
That was the first Dalvin game, Ted. That really felt like
so, Yeah, Vikings had 173 yards rushing total.
What? I mean, Cook was averaging Cook was averaging about 5 yards a carry. Madison was averaging 8 yards a carry. I mean, the run game was strong today.
How many yards did Cooker get?
111.
Cook had 111. The Vikings as a team had 173, and they held. And this is something that we talked about was going to be a key to the game on our preview show, Drew. They had to keep the Cardinals running game in check, and they held the Cardinals to 78 yards on 22 carries for an average of 3.5 yards. Their longest run of the day was only 9 yards.
And the run defense was a sieve at the beginning of the year.
It was. Mm-hmm. So I get the criticism of Ed Donatell's bend but don't break defense. I mean, Kyler Murray still had 297 yards passing total. DeAndre Hopkins had 159 yards receiving, but when they needed to make a play, they made a play. I don't know.
Something I was thinking about during the game was, remember back on our past shows, we said it was going to take about 5 or 6 games for the defense to start rounding out and playing better. Mm-hmm. I mean, they had their moments today. Every defense does. Every defense has their crappy drives during a game. They all do. But the Vikings overall, Ted, they're a lot different the last couple of weeks than they were the first 5 weeks of the season. I think.
Yeah, I think they gave up too many points. 26 points is not something you can sustain and win a lot in the league. I think, and they've been pretty good. I think they're only 12th or 13th the NFL in points allowed coming into this game. So that was kind of troubling. But they were also set up on a couple short fields as well too. I thought we talked about this. But the offense just can't seem to put a team away. When they have the ability to get a 3-score lead, they can't do it. When they have the ability to close the game out at the end, they're having a hard time doing it. That's something that the Vikings have to figure out, or it's going to come back and cost them. It hadn't been for the Cardinals being the Vikings of last year, they very well might not have won this game today.
No, absolutely.
There's a lot to work on, but we're also used to watching our college teams, Ted.
Yes.
After that Bynum interception, Ryan Day and Jim Harbaugh are throwing a post pattern the next play. They're not going to run it up the middle. We're used to what? I mean, the college game, guys go for it, man. They don't sit around and try to run the clock out. But those last 2 drives, they certainly could have made it a lot easier on themselves rather than they weren't even good plays. It was like 6 lousy plays.
So what's the over-under you guys think on how much Call of Duty Kyler Murray played this week?
Oh.
How much sleep? Was he going on maybe 4 or 5 hours sleep coming into the game? I don't know.
I think he played all night.
Probably all-nighter, full all-nighter?
God, what bonehead mistakes that guy makes.
There were probably some energy drinks being consumed on the sidelines over there.
Drop some Red Bull. There was one point after the Bynum interception. He thought Zach Ertz was going to kind of cut to the outside. Zach Ertz kind of cut back in. They were on the sidelines, and the announcers thought they were looking at that play and kind of talking about, hey, what to do next time. I guarantee you, Kyler Murray was showing him. He probably recorded his squad going on a mission in Call of Duty. Watch me kill this dude from 500 yards here with my 9mm. Watch it. Watch it.
Booster chair at Denny's. Booster chair, Kyler Murray. What about Kyler Murray? Man, he made some really bad decisions today. And you know what? That goes along with, you take some of those mistakes away. The Cardinals probably win this game. They make these really bad. Their coach makes ridiculous time management decisions. The quarterback, that ball he threw up there to Harrison Smith, you don't throw that pass.
I thought his arm was kind of hit on that one, though, wasn't it? Or was the ball just kind of slip out of his hands?
There was a guy rushing him right at the last second, but I didn't see it. The arm get tipped at all. It was just why would you do that? It's just,
it was bad.
And I'm happy for it. The Vikings took advantage of the mistakes, Ted.
But between Cliff Kingsbury's inability to manage a game,
that guy's a dick sock.
And look, say what you want. We've seen, we've seen 7 games of the Vikings now, and the only game where O'Connell has been outcoached, and he was clearly outcoached, was that Monday night game against Philadelphia. Nick Sirianni and the Eagles staff was pretty much one step ahead of them all night. I don't think you can say that about any other game the Vikings have been in. Now, they've made mistakes and they've let teams back into the game, but when you're talking situational football, coming into this game, the Vikings, I think were 4th or 5th in the NFL in points scored in the last 4 minutes. I think the last 2 minutes of the first half, last 2 minutes of the game, or whatever the case may be. But when it comes down to really serious decision-making situational football, it's hard to find a coach so far through 7 games than Kevin O'Connell. I thought he's called a pretty good game overall.
No, I think you can. I think that's a pretty solid statement. I mean, you can't argue with 6-1. Like you said, they've had their moments where things haven't been perfect and whatnot. But this team finds ways to win football games, and like you always say, you are what your record says you are. And this says he's a 6-1 head coach. And I think someone actually put in the chat that this is the best start for a Vikings head coach through their first 7 games of their career.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Someone said Denny Green went 5-2 in his first 7 games, and now Kevin O'Connell 6-1. So that sounds right to me.
There are only two Vikings coaches in their first year that have finished above 500. Denny Green in 1992 won the NFC Central. Jerry Burns went 9-7. I don't think the Vikings went to the playoffs that year. They might have. Didn't win the division.
Jerry Burns.
But even the great Bud Grant only started out 7-7 his first year.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever it is, Kevin O'Connell is preaching. The Vikes are raising their hands and saying, "Amen, brother, amen."
Yep.
And I'm here for it. I'm going to ride this train as long as it runs.
And you know what, guys? It feels like the players are buying into it more each week.
Yes,
I see a lot of the body language is just like a lot of congratulating each other, picking each other up when they're down, all the, it just seems like they're thinking, wow, we got something going on here. Who cares how you win it? Point is you win it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's all that matters. I mean, look, I say this almost every week when we have a close game like this. It's hard to win in the NFL. Take the win. Work on what you need to work on, but don't apologize for being 6-1 because there's only one other team in the NFL with a record that's better than Minnesota Vikings right now, and that's Philadelphia Eagles. That's it.
Let's give out some game footballs. You guys each get 2 players, 1 ball, 2 football game footballs.
1 on offense, 1 on defense.
Sure.
All right, I'm going to give mine to Patrick Peterson on defense and Dalvin Cook on offense.
Yeah, I'll go as Zadarius Smith on the defensive side of the football. He had a monster game, kept Kyler Murray in check. Offensively, I'm going to go ahead and give it to Dalvin Cook too. Like you said, this is the first real Dalvin Cook game we've seen this year. But I do want to mention one more record. I know we mentioned the Harrison Smith interception thing before. Adam Thielen now 3rd in Minnesota Vikings history in receptions.
That's right. That's right.
He passed Steve Jordan today. He's now at 499. His next one will be number 500. And if he hangs around a little while, he might. It's hard to believe Randy Moss only had 587 catches for the Vikings. But if Thielen sticks around for another season or two, he might catch him. I mean, he's not catching Chris Carter, obviously. But
and that play,
he's catching Randy Moss.
He caught on the sidelines and ran that big circle. I was cracking up. That was that was backyard football. That's how you play football. I was laughing.
That needed the Benny Hill music behind it too to make it complete. That would have been awesome.
I had to pause the game because I was laughing so hard. On the replay, it's like it's street football. That's how you play rec league football. You just you have a good feel for the game.
Drew, who do you got for game balls?
I have Zadarius Smith. Because not only the talent on the field, but I think he is a big locker room guy. And I think that was the biggest pickup, counting all the draft picks, whatever. Zadarius Smith was the biggest acquisition the Vikings have had this offseason.
I think so, too.
And on offense, I'm giving it to the Johnny Munt cake.
Look at you.
Not only did he get his first touchdown, he plastered the shit out of that guy on that block. He ran that guy into the ground. So I'm going to go Munt with my game ball on that.
Fair enough.
First touchdown career. Good job, dude.
Congratulations for nothing Munt touchdowns.
He buried that guy in the block, Ted. Buried him.
Couple injuries to look out for. Dalvin Tomlinson was ruled out in the 4th quarter. He hurt himself. Something to keep track of. And then Christian Darrisaw had hurt himself, and I think he was kind of going in on every other series late in the game. That's something to keep track of as well. Christian Darrisaw, there's a guy you could have given a game ball to. He was just absolutely dominating today.
Every week.
Oh man, that guy's so good. Like I said he would be. But
great draft.
You did
say that, Ted.
We got I'll tell you what, we're closing in on an hour here. Let's go ahead. Ruby, whenever you're ready, why don't you pull up the Toonces Wheel of Destiny and see who we got for our prize winner for today.
All right. Give me just 1 second.
I love the Toonces.
2 names to add. 2 people got in there at the last minute.
All righty.
She said.
Jesus. Wow. It took almost 60 full minutes, but the show has officially started.
Welcome to Vikings Report Rewind After Dark, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, no! There it is. There's the Wheel of Destiny by Toonces.
Here we go. Freddie and Paco got in there at the last minute.
Good job, Paco.
Rob Nelson.
Rob Nelson. Congratulations.
Rob Nelson.
So, Rob, you go ahead and get a hold of Ruby at Vikings Report with Drew and Ted at gmail.com. Vikings Report with Drew and Ted at gmail.com. She'll give you a link to the prize vault. You can check out the prize vault on vikingsreport.com beforehand if you want to. But congratulations, man. Well done.
I believe Rob Nelson is related to Willie Nelson.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I think Rob is related to Willie.
Okay.
So we're going to throw that little tidbit in there.
I don't believe you.
Maybe I didn't love you.
All right. So the Vikings cap off a win against Arizona 34-26, moved to 6-1, commanding lead in the NFC North. Bears lost. I think I'm not sure. Did the Lions win or did the Lions lose today?
I'm
They
not caught up on any of the
lost,
scores.
They
Lions-
let me find them here. They lost 31-27.
Dude,
So-
Campbell's going to get fired.
Yeah, I think so. The Lions lost. Bears lost. Hopefully the Packers will get curb stomped against the Bills tonight up in Western New York.
The North is looking good, Ted Glover.
It's looking very good. Before we say goodbye, Chris, any last words? Any last thoughts on today's game?
Yeah, I'm still here. I just have my video off for a second, but that's cool. Now we're 6-1. They're getting ready to take a commanding lead in the North because Green Bay is going to get hammered tonight. And there's really not a whole lot to be mad about with this team anymore. So yeah, we're pretty happy here, I think.
Drewster?
I am fired up for this season, Ted. Each week you just gain a little bit more momentum.
Yep.
But I will say this. You mentioned Bud Grant earlier. Bud Grant prided his team on two things: penalties and turnovers. And the Vikings being in the top of the league in both those categories, somewhere near the top, that's why they're winning these games.
Mm-hmm.
They're not self-destructing with penalty. Today they had 10, but up till now, I think they were the least penalized team.
And I thought a lot of those calls today were just completely bogus. And the Cardinals had 10 penalties on them, and I'm not being a homer here. I thought about, out of those 20 penalties, maybe 7 or 8 were kind of like legit calls. I mean, it was just a terrible rep through all the way around.
And you know what? Penalties and turnovers don't get talked about enough, but those are two categories that decide a lot of football games.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And today the Vikings, they gave up 10. They had a turnover in the inside the 20 with the fumble, and they still found a way to win. The Vikings are finding a way to win.
Yes.
And that reminds me of Bud Grant, because he was the master of finding a way to win.
Yes.
So
Certainly was.
I'm fired up.
All right. The best thing about being 6-1 is a chance to go to 7-1 next week against the Washington Commanders. Drew and I will be back with Vikings Report with Drew and Ted on Friday, 10 a.m. Central Time. Check it out here on our YouTube channel. Chris, Drew, and I will be back next Sunday after the Vikings Commanders game, when hopefully we'll be talking about a 7-1 Vikings team.
Oh, imagine that.
That'd be awesome. For Chris, for Drew, for Ruby, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. SKOL Vikings.